All right, let's get right into it. Think about this for a second. A world where our money, our banks, our markets, the entire global economy isn't run by humans anymore. Instead, it's all controlled by a powerful AI, an AI that could predict market crashes, stamp out corruption, and create this amazing, stable world. But what happens if that system makes one single catastrophic mistake? Or what if it decides that certain jobs or entire industries are just no longer useful? This is the future we are actively building right now. So we have to ask, is it a promise or is it a peril?
So let's kick things off with a warning. This phrase from a report in The Guardian is pretty chilling. A feedback loop with no break. It perfectly describes a system that, once it gets going, just can't be stopped. It really paints a picture of what happens when we hand over financial control to autonomous systems that operate at the speed of light. And, this isn't some far-off sci-fi idea. This is something we're already dealing with.
So what's this number? Well, this was a very real shock to the system. This was Wall Street dropping over 800 points right at the opening bell. Now, a fall that steep usually means a war just broke out or a massive bank collapsed. That's literally hundreds of billions of dollars in value just poof, vanishing into thin air. But the thing that caused this particular panic, it was something completely new. That's right. The market didn't crash because of something that actually happened. It cratered because of a story. A single speculative report from a small research firm just laid out this hypothetical scenario where autonomous AI agents completely gut the economy and unemployment just skyrockets. It wasn't a prediction. It wasn't even based on a real event. But in today's high-speed, algorithm-driven world, the idea was enough to send a very real shockwave through the global markets.
So this all brings up two massive questions, right? What are these fears really all about? And, how plausible is a future where AI actually has this kind of power? To answer that, we first need to get a handle on just how deeply AI is already woven into the fabric of our financial world. Let's start with the promise.
And here's the thing you've got to understand. AI in finance isn't a what if anymore. It's a what is. I mean, look at this. According to the Bank for International Settlements, nearly 80% of the world's large financial institutions are already using artificial intelligence in their day-to-day operations. So this isn't some future fantasy. It's happening right now.
And how are they using it? Well, it's pretty much everywhere. Right now, AI is the new engine of finance. It's deciding who gets a loan with more accuracy than any human ever could. It's making millions of trades in the blink of an eye. That's called high-frequency trading. It's spotting these incredibly complex fraud patterns that are totally invisible to us. It's processing insurance claims in seconds. And yeah, it's even powering those customer service bots we all talk to. It's all designed for one thing, to make the financial system faster, smarter, and way more efficient.
And all that efficiency? Well, it could mean a huge boom for the economy. Some economic models are projecting that by 2043, AI could add an extra 1.2 to 2% to the annual GDP growth rate. I mean, that is a massive boost in global prosperity and wealth. So, what's the catch?
And here it is, here's the turn. As one regulator in the UK warned, this total reliance on super complex tech brings a much, much greater risk of catastrophic failure. The very thing that makes AI so powerful, its incredible speed and scale, is also what makes its mistakes absolutely terrifying. So let's break down what those specific risks really look like. So the CFA Institute breaks the danger down into three critical areas. First step, you have systemic model risk. Think of it like this. You have an AI model that's a brilliant race car driver, but it's only ever driven on a dry track. The second it starts to rain, all that skill is useless, and they crash. Second is data risk. This is the classic garbage in, garbage out problem. If you train an AI on biased loan data from the past, you don't get a neutral decision maker, you get a very efficient, automated bigot. And third, there's automation risk. A typo in an email is embarrassing. A typo in algorithm's code, that can trigger 1 million mistaken trades in less than a second.
And underneath all of this is something called black box risk. See, we can build an AI that makes incredibly accurate decisions, but a lot of the time, we have no earthly idea why it's making them. Imagine an AI denies you a mortgage. You go to the bank and ask for a reason, and their only answer is, the algorithm said no. When we can't explain the logic, we can't fix the errors, and we can't hold anyone accountable. To really get the scale of this risk, just look at this comparison. When a human banker makes a mistake, okay, a few people are affected. The damage is contained. But when a core financial algorithm makes a mistake, that error just ripples through the entire system instantly.
It's not a local problem, it's a systemic contagion that can affect millions of accounts and totally destabilize the market.
And this isn't just a theory. This happened. Just look at the 2010 flash crash. In just 5 minutes, high-frequency trading algorithms, basically just talking to each other at speeds no human could possibly follow, started a chain reaction that wiped out nearly $1 trillion in market value. The market did bounce back, but it was a terrifying demonstration of that feedback loop with no break. And the most chilling part? It took regulators months to even figure out what had happened, which raises a huge question. When the code crashes the market, who's to blame?
Okay, so far, we've talked about the risks of using AI inside our current financial system. But let's raise the stakes a little. What if the goal isn't just to make our markets faster, but to fundamentally redesign them? What if we could use AI to create a whole new, perfectly efficient economic system from the ground up?
You know what's so fascinating is how the classic arguments against a centrally planned economy are just suddenly crumbling. For a century, everyone said it was impossible for 3 reasons. First, you could never collect enough real-time data on what people want. Well, today, our phones do that every second. Second, no algorithm could possibly manage all the resources. Now, we have machine learning. And third, there was never enough computing power. We now have that, on demand, in the cloud. The old objections are just being wiped away by new technology.
And this brings us to a really critical trade-off. An algorithmically planned economy might not be forced on us. As this quote from a Duke Law paper suggests, we might choose it ourselves, willingly, giving up our economic freedom bit by bit in exchange for convenience, efficiency, and an easy life, the promise of a perfectly optimized world, but at the potential cost of our own freedom to choose.
And that brings us to one final massive challenge. How do we pay for society itself? In most modern economies, like here in the US, about 3/4 of all government tax revenue comes from labor, from taxes on people's paychecks. But what happens when AI starts doing a huge chunk of that labor?
So here's the core paradox. Economic models show that AI makes the entire economic pie bigger. It boosts overall wealth, which is great. But at the same time, by displacing human jobs, it shrinks the very tax base that governments rely on to fund everything, from roads to schools to social safety nets. So we get a richer economy, but a potentially poorer government, right at the moment when people might need its help the most. This challenge is forcing us to rethink the very foundations of our social contract, and some pretty radical new ideas are being put on the table. Policymakers are seriously debating a shift away from taxing labor and towards taxing consumption. They're exploring a robot tax to help retrain workers, or even implementing a universal basic income. Some are even looking to a future where we might need to directly tax the resources that powerful AI systems end up controlling themselves. So we're left with this one final, critical question. As we hand over more and more of our economic lives to AI, from our personal bank accounts to the very structure of our society, we face a fundamental choice. Will we have the wisdom to build our human values, things like fairness, accountability, and freedom, into the code that runs our world? Or, in our search for perfect efficiency, will we allow the machine's logic to slowly, bit by bit,